What's up, guys? This is Greene from Professor Hogan's English 101 class, and this is my persuasive presentation on keeping public lands public. President Theodore Roosevelt once stated, "It is also vandalism wantonly to destroy or to permit the destruction of what is beautiful in nature, where it be a cliff, a forest, or a species of mammal or bird." Here in the United States, we turn our rivers and streams into sewers and dumping grounds. We pollute the air, we destroy forests, and exterminate fishes, birds, and mammals. While president, Theodore Roosevelt created 5 national parks, 18 national monuments, 51 bird sanctuaries, began the National Wildlife Refuge System, and set aside more than 100 million acres for national forests. Our public lands are iconic to America. They are what make the United States beautiful. Currently, Congressman Jason Chaffetz is pushing a bill that will hand over 3.3 million public federal acres to the states. The states will then possess ownership of the land and can freely choose what to do with the land. Selling the public lands to the states will have negative results. There will be lost revenue and jobs, insufficient funding to maintain the land, and great destruction of sacred land and resources. In 1916, the National Park Act was instated, and it stressed that the park should be managed in such a way as to leave them unimpaired for future generations. In order for this to happen, we must have official employees hired to carry out such regulation tasks. Public grounds such as BLM land, federal wildlife refuges, and national forests contribute to around 6.1 million jobs in America. Many of these essential employees depend on these careers, and it is very likely their jobs could be terminated through the federal to state transition. The Forest Service is just one of the few public agencies tasked with managing more than 650 million acres of federal lands. Many of these 28,000 Forest Service employees would be forced out of their existing jobs. National forests and other public lands also create great revenue through recreational use of the property. Annually, on average, these few public lands bring in about $646 billion through recreation alone. Whether camping the night in Yosemite or obtaining a permit to climb Mount Whitney, these contributions in revenue support public employees and preservation of our public lands. Allowing the states to assume control over our public lands will remove many jobs and crucial revenue associated with the use of our unrestricted land. Without adequate revenue, public lands would no longer be capable of offering open, inexpensive, and unsoiled land. The fear of Congress selling public lands to the state is the dreadful outcome that the states will not have enough money to invest in the land and preserve its public and pure nature. Ray Sue, president of Natural Resource Defense Council and a former assistant secretary for policy, wrote in the New York Times, "Private gain is the hidden agenda behind the movement to transfer federal lands to the states, because the states can't afford to maintain them. This is quite true because an abundance of maintenance and preservation is required to keep the land clean and safe to the public." Last year, the Forest Service spent over $240 million fighting forest fires. Many people fear the states will not be able to offer necessary safety measures and preservation due to the lack of funding, and this would greatly increase the risk of forced closure of the public land. Ray Sue goes on to predict, once cash-strapped states have squeezed all they can out of budgets for schools, highways, and other essential services, they'll sell off those formerly public lands to the highest industrial and corporate bidders. Without states providing proper funding, we will lose the precious public land that hosts such amazing wildlife and opportunity. Removing the jurisdiction of current national law will inevitably have destructive effect on the public land's wildlife and resources. At one point or another, each of us has come across a no trespassing sign posted outside empty private land. If Congress pushed to sell off the land, we will see more of these signs and less welcoming trailhead signs. When the land ends up falling under the state's jurisdiction, we will also see greater destruction to natural habitat and resources. President Trump's Secretary of Interior, Ryan Zinke, voted for the Residual Federal Forest Act, which would allow logging companies to have access to federal forests in order to thin them, as a way to prevent massive forest fires. This mindset of politicians would push out animals and wildlife from their natural habitat, decreasing the purity of the land and increasing extinction. Also, if privately owned, we will see the purpose and use of the land veer towards an industrial nature. We will see more oil wells, mines, and other industrial sites causing thinning to our natural resources. On Tuesday, September 6th, the members pushing for the Federal Land Freedom Act were granted a hearing for a bill that would seek to hand management of public federal lands to the states and eliminate safety measures and regulations that protect land and water. The director of Public Lands Campaign, Brad Brooks, said, addressing the bill, "This bill takes land that belongs to all Americans and sells it out to the oil and gas industry by prioritizing energy production over wildlife, hunting, fishing, biking, and other recreational uses. Allowing the states to privately own and operate our public lands will push out natural wildlife and destroy many natural resources." Congress and politicians debate about the positive benefits of shifting ownership of public lands from a national ownership to a state ownership. Some politicians see 3 million acres of uninhabited land as a waste of property. Industrialized members of Congress believe we should be placing rigs on this land to drill for our own oil and push for America to become further self-dependent of resources. Other members of Congress see 3 million acres as an opportunity to make money. They believe the states will have the financial answers to better revenue and more jobs. If Congress were to pass a law that would put public lands into the hands of states, there would be loss of jobs and revenue, insufficient funding, and damage to our sacred land. Public lands offer many great opportunities for careers, and thousands of public employees currently depend on these jobs. These hardworking men and women are crucial to maintaining regulation and the purity of the public property. Also, with the new private owners that will purchase the land, it will become inaccessible to the public, and many recreational sports will be missed. Industry, oil, and mining will also go up on the land, pushing out wildlife and animals. Let's not let a few greedy, cash-hungry politicians target land that is most sacred and pure to our nation and heritage.